The psychology of obsession. Why do some thoughts refuse to leave our minds? Why do certain people, goals, or ideas consume our attention until they become almost impossible to ignore? Obsession can feel powerful, intoxicating, and sometimes even motivating. But beneath the surface, obsession often reveals something deeper about how the human mind works. To understand obsession, we first need to understand the psychology behind it. Part 1. The brain's reward system. One reason obsession develops is because of the brain's reward system. When something triggers excitement, curiosity, or emotional intensity, the brain releases chemicals like dopamine. Dopamine reinforces behaviors that feel meaningful or rewarding. The problem is that the brain doesn't always distinguish between healthy focus and unhealthy fixation. If a thought or experience repeatedly activates the brain's reward system, the mind begins returning to it over and over again. What begins as interest can slowly turn into mental fixation. The brain learns that thinking about this person, idea, or goal produces stimulation, so it keeps going back. Part 2. Obsession and uncertainty. Another powerful driver of obsession is uncertainty. The human brain dislikes unanswered questions. When something feels unresolved, a complicated relationship, an unfinished goal, or a confusing interaction, the mind keeps trying to solve it. This mental loop can become exhausting. Instead of letting go, the brain keeps replaying the situation, searching for clarity. In psychology, this is sometimes called the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency to remember and mentally return to unfinished or unresolved experiences. When uncertainty combines with emotional intensity, obsession becomes much more likely. Part 3. Emotional attachment. Obsession is also closely tied to emotional attachment. When someone becomes emotionally important to us, the brain begins prioritizing thoughts about that person. Memories, conversations, and imagined scenarios replay again and again. This happens because emotional attachment activates powerful neural networks connected to memory, reward, and anticipation. In other words, the mind becomes wired to keep revisiting the emotional experience. For some people, this can create an intense mental focus that feels almost impossible to switch off. Part 4. The illusion of control. Another reason obsession persists is the illusion that thinking more will eventually produce answers or solutions. The mind believes that if it just analyzes the situation one more time, it might finally understand everything. But this rarely happens. In reality, obsessive thinking often creates the opposite effect. Instead of producing clarity, it amplifies confusion, anxiety, and emotional intensity. The brain becomes trapped in a cycle of constant mental replay. Obsession isn't simply about wanting something too much. It often emerges from a combination of reward, uncertainty, emotional attachment, and the mind's desire for resolution. Understanding these psychological patterns can help us recognize when our thoughts are becoming stuck in a loop. And once we recognize the pattern, we gain the ability to step back, regain perspective, and break the cycle. Because the mind is powerful. But awareness is often the first step toward control. Subscribe to The Hidden Mind for more insights into psychology, human behavior, and the hidden forces shaping our thoughts and relationships.